We turn next tonight here to the case that captured the attention of this country, the Menendez brothers, Erik and Lyle.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're breaking down the most chilling moments from the Menendez brothers case, in their own words.
I learned from the time I was a small boy to hold in pain and not express it physically.
August 20th, 1989, the Menendez murders. Erik tells all.
Later that night, my dad was pounding on my door, telling me to open up the door in my bedroom. I remember holding the gun, sitting on my bed, waiting to see if he was going to break down the door.
As we'll get into a little later, the Menendez brothers have always said that Jose and Kitty Menendez's abuse was so bad that it caused them to fear for their lives. To that end, Erik's comments about the night of the murders themselves will put a chill down your spine.
I remember this terror coursing through me that this was it. It was all going to happen now. You know, for the first time, I was going to confront my dad, not back down.
Erik asserts that in the midst of building family tension, Jose pounded on his door. Erik feared that he would be killed. As the younger brother elaborates, Erik claims to have been sitting in bed with his gun in hand, waiting for his father to make a move. While, per Erik's account, Jose eventually gave up, this incident foreshadows the horror that was to come.
In my mind, it didn't even matter that I was holding this gun. I felt like as soon as Dad broke through that door, I was going to die. But I didn't care, because I was never going to let Dad come in my room and do that again.
Grief and Rolexes, 2020.
It was the same life before or afterwards.
With more money.
With more money.
Speaking to Barbara Walters for ABC's 2020 after their stunning sentence had been handed down to them, Lyle and Erik answered some of the nagging questions that remained after their years-long ordeal in court. Walters' characteristically blunt interviewing style left no stone unturned, nor did it let the Menendez brothers off the hook.
It got to a point where I have all this money and so much pain, I don't know what to do with it, and eventually...
I don't know, you're losing me.
At one point, the veteran journalist drilled down on the brothers' $700,000 spending spree. Walters demanded answers as to how two people could even feel like shopping for luxury items after having committed such a heinous crime. In response, Erik revealed that no amount of money could fill the hole they had created, and that it might have simply been a coping mechanism.
I don't think that it's understandable. I mean, people react to some traumatic event like that in different ways.
Just a normal kid, 2020.
I don't know if anyone can be portrayed fairly in the media, who they are.
Well, let me say it. There are people, a great number of people, who think that you two are spoiled brats.
In the same 2020 interview, Walters asked the brother about media speculation regarding the case, their upbringing, and even themselves. Lyle and Erik commented that this speculation did not affect the facts of the case, nor did it imply their guilt.
That's not who I am, but I can't defend that. Because I came from a family of wealth, it doesn't make me spoiled.
In response to Erik's claim that he's a quote-unquote normal kid, Walters is bewildered and reminds him that he is a convicted murderer, found guilty of having taken both of his parents' lives. While Erik's statement may seem absurd on the surface, his follow-up, in which he declares himself to be a normal person who has gone through abnormal experiences, places it in context. Appearances are indeed often deceiving.
But I don't think you aren't guilty because they found you spoiled.
Or evil.
Or evil.
Just a normal, I'm just a normal kid.
Oh, Erik, you're a normal kid who killed your parents.
Preparation for prison. ABC World News Tonight.
I am the kid that did kill his parents, and no river of tears has changed that, and no amount of regret has changed it.
Lyle's 2017 press interview, his first in over 20 years since the in-person Walters interview, revealed a calmer, more mature Menendez brother. While sticking firmly to his long-held positions regarding the case, Lyle expressed remorse and lamented the futility of the case, sharing that he and his brother's decision to kill their parents could likely have been avoided with greater forethought.
My own childhood prepared me surprisingly well for the chaos of prison life.
The elder brother's more revealing quote from the interview, however, was a remark that illustrated the depths of Jose's depravity. That is, Lyle's childhood had essentially trained him to handle prison.
It's still a failed, destructive ending. That's part of the tragedy of it. It could so easily have not have happened.
New allegations against Jose, 48 hours.
For me, it was very meaningful to just have things come out that caused people to really realize, okay, at least this part of what it's about is true.
Throughout the Menendez brothers' trial, a massive obstacle that they ultimately failed to overcome was the lack of physical evidence of the alleged abuse they suffered. While those allegations were backed up by court testimony, as well as written and verbal accounts on Lyle and Erik's part, they were still found guilty and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole.
What do you remember about the Menudo band members going to your home?
Only that my father had sort of intimate involvement with that particular group. They usually would not have too much involvement with groups other than negotiations.
However, in 2023, new evidence came to light that tentatively carried the potential of freeing the brothers. Roy Rosello, a member of Puerto Rican band Menudo, claimed that Jose Menendez had drugged and assaulted him as a minor. Lyle's recollection of Menudo visiting the family home will surely creep you out.
People in the industry were talking about that maybe something had happened because there was a sex scandal in the group.
Trading it all away. Dateline NBC.
I would trade my entire defense for a 30-second video of my father.
In a phone interview with Dateline NBC's Keith Morrison, Lyle Menendez put the abuse his father inflicted upon him in no uncertain terms. When asked by the investigative journalist if he was avoiding responsibility by blaming the aforementioned abuse, the elder Menendez brother asserted that, in essence, a video of his father's atrocious behavior would trump any legal defense and convince any juror.
I would trade my whole case for it, because I think it's so sanitized and so easy to use the word abuse. Oh, the abuse wasn't so bad.
Pressed by Morrison as to why the brothers didn't simply pack up and leave, Lyle countered by declaring that no matter where they tried to run and hide, their father would catch them, and that the consequences would be dire.
We finally just kind of got overwhelmed with this panic and emotion and made the decision to run in that room.
Lyle's Devil's Pact, Dateline NBC.
I said nothing. And I just feel like part of that pact I have with my dad is I'm keeping this secret.
Lyle commented on the events of the case with years' worth of hindsight. Perhaps one of the interview's most chilling moments was Lyle's articulation of his feelings regarding Jose's alleged abuse.
And for you to have done this to my brother, it was like I kept my part of that sort of devil's pact, and you didn't.
Reflecting on keeping the abuse under wraps, Lyle described feelings that are unfortunately all too common for victims of such mistreatment. Most uncomfortably of all, Lyle stated that his mother felt that the boys had somehow come in between her and her husband. While, of course, the truth in the Menendez case is likely unknowable, details like these provide uneasy insights into the minds of abusers.
Reflecting afterwards, it haunts me. It does haunt me.
On Taking Their Mother's Life, 2020.
And my mother was on the couch and she had been drinking. And she said, "What's wrong with you?" And I said, nothing, you wouldn't understand.
It's inarguable that the Menendez case has been endlessly debated, scrutinized, pored over, and analyzed. What is often easy to forget, however, is that there are real human players at its core, not just characters in a Netflix miniseries. As such, hearing about the actual abuse that the boys are alleged to have suffered will tend to remind you of that.
What do you think, I'm stupid? And she told me that she knew, that she had known all my life what my father was doing.
When prompted by Walters to explain why they had decided to kill their mother, Erik's response is stomach-churning for a number of reasons. Chief among them, a clearly emotional Erik's account of confessing the abuse to Kitty Menéndez goes terribly awry, with his mother revealing that she had always known, and that she blamed her sons for it.
And I just saw Dad and Mom as the same person at that point. I saw them as a single person.
Why They Did It, 2020.
Do you still think about the night of the murder?
Every day.
You both do?
Since their 1990 arrest, the Menendez brothers have maintained that their decision to permanently take care of their parents was motivated not by greed or bitterness, but retribution for past abuse, as well as alleged threats on their lives.
First thing that comes to mind is terror. I was so afraid. A few days before, I had said to myself, I'm never going to let my father touch me again, after I told Lyle that it had been continuing on.
When prompted by Walters to comment on what had caused them to snap, Erik and Lyle shared that, in their view, they were afraid that their father Jose Menendez would snap first. It goes without saying that while the events as described by the brothers are horrifying and heartbreaking, it is shiver-inducing to hear the reasoning, rationale, and level of insight that would lead to such an atrocity.
But you'd bought the guns. It wasn't something that just happened that moment. You'd thought about it.
No.
You bought the guns in advance. They just weren't in the house.
Yes, we bought the guns in advance.
So this
We
didn't
bought the
just happen
guns.
that moment.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Pain training. The Menendez murders. Erik tells all.
I learned from the time I was a small boy to hold in pain and not express it physically.
Regardless of personal beliefs, it seems safe to say that, as described by Lyle and Erik Menendez, the abuse they claim to have endured was soul-crushing, mind-numbing, and everything in between. For a disturbing, concrete example of this, look once more to Erik's own words as part of A&E's Erik Tells All docu-miniseries.
It came all the way down to not being allowed to cry, not being allowed to express pain. And what would happen when I expressed pain with shame, or I would get hit for that.
The younger brother claims that Jose's boys were forbidden from demonstrating any kind of emotion, and that he, quote, trained them to repress their pain and inner turmoil. As such, Jose allegedly forced Lyle to strike Erik's, quote, pressure points until he was in agony. As Erik describes, any resistance only led to harsher treatment.
One time, he felt Lyle was holding back on him, held Lyle harder, and Lyle whispered, "I'm sorry." And I screamed out.
If you or someone you know is struggling, please don't hesitate to call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-SAFE or 7233.